Hi, and welcome to Schmooze with Suze. I'm Suze Montgomery, your host, and boy, we have a show. This is one of my good friends, Michael, and Michael is the editor, Michael Sullivan, of the Reporter newspaper. Now, I'm sure everybody that's watching this has read this at least once or twice, but let's do a little background first on Michael, because you've been there quite a while. I think you're the longest surviving
editor? Yeah, well, yeah.
Editor?
I've been there since 2008.
That's a long time for the Reporter.
Yeah. There's a lot of editors that are still with our company. That's been, we have papers down in San Diego and up in Pasadena, but for Ventura, I've been the longest.
That's history.
For a while.
So
yeah.
Dave owns what? David Comden owns the paper. He's publisher, correct?
Well, he's the publisher of the paper, and then we have a corporate company that's based in Pasadena.
Okay,
So that's Southland Publishing, and that so we have Ventana, that's run out of our office.
Oh, you do Ventana?
Yeah,
okay.
and VACE Reporter, and then the affiliates are, or not affiliates, our sister papers are Pasadena Weekly and San Diego City Beat and the Argonaut. And then there's various other magazines, monthly magazines.
So he's doing okay.
Yeah, he's doing okay. But now there's but the corporate, he's the VP of operations for that company.
And he's based locally here in town?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about you. I mean, aren't you a local kid?
I was born in CMH.
Wow.
In 1980, and my son was born in CMH in 2003. So I went to Friends School. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
You went to Quaker school? Wow, Michael, there's a little gem of information that nobody knows.
Well, there
How
you
was
go.
that?
I was there till third grade, so it kind of went by kind of fast.
Okay, so you weren't really indoctrinated in the culture yet.
No.
But probably a good education.
Yeah, it was fair, yeah. I mean, I think the good education for any particular person is probably in college, because you really retain a lot more information, I believe, as far as my perspective is. And not saying that we don't need all that, but I can't remember what I learned in first or second or third or even fourth grade, even though they say you're supposed to learn everything in kindergarten. I have no idea what I learned in kindergarten. So
interesting.
And then I went to Anacapa.
Okay.
And then I went to a boarding school in Missouri. So that
boarding school in Missouri.
That was a Baptist Reformed school.
Wow.
Baptist boarding school.
That is
I was a little bit of a
rebellious
teenager, so that's where I went
that
to.
makes the most interesting people, though. I was rebellious as well. I mean, I think it's rebellion, but also a healthy, degree of questioning. Not necessarily authority, but everything.
Right. Yeah.
But it makes you a really well-rounded person rather than somebody that's just compartmentalized.
Right. Yeah. Rules were never my thing. But then, as an adult, rules are really important for a civilized society. So.
Well, that's for society.
For society, yes. So
but
I
doesn't
understand.
necessarily fit all of us.
Yeah, I appreciate them. So, but from there, I went off to Oxnard High School, and then I went to another school after that, and to another boarding school in Florida.
Ooh.
For a couple of years, and that was in the Panhandle. That was another Baptist school. And then I went to one in Baja, Mexico. And then
How'd you get to Baja?
the school in Jay, Florida had a sister school in Baja, Mexico, and they just opened it up for the girls that were coming from California.
So all this shifting and moving around, but actually in the rebelliousness like myself, but actually gave you a great background to draw from
Right.
for your career.
I was really surprised when I came back to Ventura in 2008, how many people never leave.
Oh, true.
And
Absolutely.
so many people really don't travel very much.
And they have narrow perspectives.
They just don't, they never lived in a huge city. Atlanta was a huge city for me. And that, there's all sorts of things going on in that city. And they can eat you up, or you can make the most of it.
Well, you know, that is all, I don't think that's a negative. I think this is all positive because it gives you the perspective. You have, experiences in other places, so you can make comparisons and change things that don't work.
Right.
And it makes you very adaptable, I think, more than anything. You can live in different areas, but you can still retain yourself.
Right, yeah.
But you can glean all this information, and this gives you the career that you have because you
Right.
have a bigger, wider perspective.
Because it's rare to be able to say, I experienced this in Atlanta, I experienced this, I also lived in San Diego, I experienced different cultures, different lifestyles, different perspectives. I lived in Midtown Atlanta for 5 years, and that's a high density gay population. Coming from Ventura.
Wow, that must have been a shocker.
It was always kind of a shock that we don't have that culture here.
Right, exactly.
So, and it's a little, it was a welcomed change. It was definitely unexpected, but I guess I was expecting anything, so.
We're still in the city of Ventura, somewhat provincial.
Yeah.
We're getting there, but after 200 years, I thought we would get a little bit further, but we're not.
Right.
But also, like you said, there's not a real big active gay population in the city of Ventura.
Right.
We're still conservative.
Right.
And I despair about that because I really think that there's such a vibrancy and there's so much creativity. And because I hang out with a lot of gay people and they're my friends, they're my close friends.
Right.
A gay couple married my husband and myself.
Right.
We're both extremely open and liberal and
Right.
we embrace that. But in the city of Ventura, unfortunately, they don't. I think like I said, they're getting there, but it's like, very slow.
And that part of I was thinking about that the other day, about why there's a focus on accepting them, on not that they're
Right.
a different culture or anything, but I think when you live in a city that isn't so open-armed, you hear about
Right.
teenagers committing suicide because they're not
Sure.
accepted, because we're growing this culture, then they end up doing self-destructive habits, and they shouldn't be anything different
No,
than
than
anybody,
anyone else.
and they aren't. And the fact that we aren't embracing everything as
We're
human,
people,
as
though,
human.
Michael. We're people, and with that perspective, or maybe that train of thought, we're just human beings. We're all here trying to survive and do the best we possibly can.
I know.
So if we're not accepting someone else, who's got the right to judge?
Right.
And
I know. And
I
I guess it works the same way. Why don't we just accept people who don't accept others?
That's
So
exactly
it's-
right.
it's
We were talking off camera. We were talking about, and your editorial this week focuses on probably the thread of that is what? Accepting other people
Right.
for their differences?
Right.
Do you write all your own editorials?
Yes. Yeah.
Your stuff is good. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a friend of yours. That's the first thing I turn to after I look at the cover and I go, is there anything in here I really want to see, focus in on? And this is the focus, I guess it's the economic focus for...
It's the forecast
yeah,
for
215?
Yeah.
Kind of generalized though.
Yeah. Yeah, it's politics and economy and...
You're plugged into the political situation here in
yeah.
town. But I love your editorials because they don't pull punches.
Right.
You don't soft pedal it.
I try not to.
Well, we can read something else if we want something soft pedaled, but yours are really, really good. How long do you agonize over an editorial?
Editorials are hard because sometimes it could be something that is sudden and in the news. So, like what happened in Paris this week or last week. I'm constantly thinking about what I'm going to write, and not necessarily because I pitched it to my publisher first, and he's kind of my editorial board when it comes to doing the voice of the paper. And that one, I'm having a real hard time letting it go. It was constantly on my mind. I couldn't believe it happened. I woke up, looked at my phone, there was probably about 15 notifications about what was happening in Paris last week. And I was pretty much crying in bed, just thinking.
Well, you identified with these people.
Right, and I've also been through very strict and regimented religious schools. And so to think that my opinion now could serve as a threat to my life, and what we all stand for, to speak freely for ourselves, it still bothers me a lot.
It would bother me too if I was a journalist. I'm not a journalist, but it bothered me on a human level.
Right.
It's like, getting back to it, why do we treat each other this way?
Right.
I mean, that's just wrong.
And a thought process is, why would anybody find justification to murder someone else?
Right.
If getting a little political here.
No,
so,
get political, because this is all about it.
I just feel that if you know that your God is omnipotent and all-powerful, then why would you take it into your own hands to murder somebody else?
Exactly. It's counterintuitive.
Yeah,
Doesn't make any sense to me.
No.
And none of this made any sense to me last week.
And it rebounded badly for their cause, because you had
Correct.
close to 4 million people flood Paris.
Flood in the streets.
Yeah, and around France, and how important that was to them. Even if they don't agree with what Charlie Hebdo was doing, they still agree with the idea they're allowed to do it, and their lives should not be threatened for it.
No.
But I was reading some things about how the editor knew that he was going to die.
Oh, he did?
Eventually, yeah, according to an apparent girlfriend he had. And I think once you have a passion like that, and his passion was, clearly speaking freely, and all religions. I'm not sure if he went on atheism as well, but that everything's up for scrutiny. Yeah. Everything's up to be questioned, and that is our ability to be a free person and to be able to speak our minds. And then once you start chipping away at those freedoms, the threat of violence isn't the real issue. The threat of oppression, the threat of the government, the threat of your neighbor saying you should knock it off, you should be quiet now. That's the real threat, is when people are telling you, your comrades, your friends are telling you shouldn't be saying things like this. But that's our right.
One of the things that, and I love your work. Thanks. I love what you do. I love who you are. I love watching you, and I watch you because, you have such courage, not only of your convictions in your press and what you write, but you're not afraid to stand up and say, that is wrong. I'm thinking specifically about the mental health facility that was down over by your house that nobody even had on the radar.
Right, yeah.
You're the one that had a stand on this, and I applauded you. And that took tremendous courage to go against the system in place and say wrong.
Well, the way it, so just to clarify, it's not a mental health.
What was it?
Just for a mental health facility. So if you recall Isla Vista, there was
Correct.
the man who went, and he's pretty much a blatant narcissist, and he decided, because women weren't giving him his due, he decided to just gun down his roommates, his friend, people in Isla Vista. So now let's say he didn't commit suicide or was shot in that, and they found him criminally insane. Then he would go into an institution, and then when he got out of that institution, he would be seen at the Conrep facility that was in downtown, right around residential. So
it was set in the middle of a residential area.
There's a senior citizen home 2 doors down.
Oh my God.
There's children playing in the alley behind them. There would have been one thing if they said, we're coming, we want to talk to you, we're considering this.
But they didn't do that.
No, they just went under the radar.
It was a pop-up, wasn't it?
Pretty much, yeah. So what happened in the Ventura County Behavioral Health couldn't reach a deal with this particular facet of mental health, which is dealing with criminally insane people. So So I guess a Virginia-based, if I recall correctly, Virginia-based company is now overseeing these kind of health services. So that is what they just decided to go under the radar. So.
I was so surprised at that because I don't believe the city was even informed that they were going to be opening, right?
They applied for a permit to be down there, obviously to occupy, but it just said something like mental health, it's fine. So yeah, it's fine, mental health is fine, except for the fact that only if you go through the program after 2 years does the recidivism go down.
Right.
So up until that point, between the time they start to the time they leave,
yeah,
who knows what would happen? And I thought that was really unfair for that
It was not
community.
only unfair, it was, talk about insane.
Right,
That was insane,
yeah.
to actually put it in a residential area like that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because that was one of your finer ones because I'm applauding from the sidelines.
Yeah, my staff writer covered that, and he did really a good job on that.
What happened to Moomgene? Is he no here?
So when I came on to VACE Reporter, I kept getting flack all the time. It's just a liberal rag. It's just all we are. Mind you, I don't mind that.
No.
That's okay. But my job also is to facilitate ways for more readers to pick up our paper. And
Right.
so if you're any conservative mind, I don't think that it's right to isolate and ignore a conservative perspective. So we brought him on. He's every other week. Probably about a year and a half ago, we had another very strong writer, and his name's Raymond Freeman, and he came on to be more of that real liberal stance.
So
And
there's a balance in this,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
It's a hard line to navigate.
Right.
I mean, you have to be somewhat, neutral, but then again, you have your own opinions. And I'm really grateful for David to allow you to have your own opinion too.
Right, yeah.
Because that's tremendous faith in you and who you are and what you do. But how do you make decisions on what kind of stories do you actually print or cover, or how do you decide? Is this a group collaborative thing, or?
Sometimes. So right now I have about 5 months of features planned.
Oh.
So sometimes it'll be a freelancer pitching something. So it'll be general observations, whether it's my staff or I'm picking up things. I feel very connected. I feel like I may have some kind of empathy with so many people. And in 2010, I'm not sure if you were aware that following year everything was covering cancer.
I do remember. Well, you and
Like
I are both. Well, I'm not in survivor mode yet, but you are a survivor. And I remember
It'll be 4
doing your
years
walk.
in March. Yeah.
Wow, you look great.
you.
I mean, your hair. Obviously, if you haven't watched my show in a while, or you're just tuning in now, obviously this is not a fashion statement. Okay, I'm going through chemotherapy. I've got 5 more to go, and then I get a month off, and then I start radiation. It is a life changer, is it not?
Yeah.
It really makes you change your perspective on a lot of different levels. I'm grateful for it. I know that sounds a little goofy, but I'm grateful for it because I learned so many new lessons. And yours was really bad. You had a really nasty diagnosis, if I remember right.
I don't know if it's the nasty diagnosis per se, but being 30, being a single mother, and having a full-time job, and that was probably the scariest.
Scared the crap out of you.
It was I had Hodgkin's lymphoma. I was stage 2B. I used to have these night sweats, and I lost like 30 pounds in one summer right before I found out. And I thought, whoa, Atkins really worked well.
Ooh, you didn't even put it together, right?
No, I had nodules. I didn't realize what was going on, and then so I went on this trip because I love art, and I had heard many interesting but a lot of really great things about Burning Man. And so I went to Burning Man, and that's a whole other interview, I think, in itself.
Yeah, that could be fun. We're going to do one of those.
But on the way home, so we had some problems getting home with the RV, and anyways, when I finally got home, I had bronchitis, and my doctor, Dr. Nugent, she said to me, well, these nodules could be 3 things. They could be cat scratch fever, and I had a cat for 10 years and never had any issues. And then she said it could be desert fever, and I was just out in the desert. Why not? But I'd had him for months. And then she said, well, you could have cancer. And I thought,
What did you do?
cried.
Just shocking.
Oh, because I think that when you're any of those age, anything, any age, it can happen to you. I mean,
No, you're in denial.
it's a kind of a stupid way to think.
No, not necessarily. I mean, when I got my diagnosis, I was like, I hadn't felt good. Mine was kind of precipitated by not feeling well, but I had just had a shoulder surgery. So I thought, okay, it's probably because I'm dragging. And then I go, no, maybe it's because I'm getting older. Yeah, I'm getting older. Or maybe just, I'm slowing down a little. Whatever it was. Never, ever putting that together. And, I said to John, I'm just not feeling good. I just don't feel me.
Right.
So you go in and you get diagnosed.
Right, and then it's kind of this whirlwind after that. You go to get your PET scan done, you get, the biopsy, and get the port in, and then all of a sudden you're hooked up on chemo, and you're sitting with these people who are all
Dying.
Or trying to survive.
Chemo's really an eye opener. How long were you in chemo?
6 months.
It's a long time.
About 6 months. So it was, I would say it was October until, and it was really great right before I had my biopsy done. It was my son's birthday. And so we had this great birthday for him on the beach, but it was cloudy, stormy, and just for the time that it was his birthday party on the beach, it just turned into sunshine, and they had this really great birthday.
Wow.
So, yeah. And then after that, it just spiraled, and I had no idea. I just thought, I'm going to be fine. It's just something I'm going to have to do every other Friday. So
you handled it extremely well. I remember watching you because it's a very scary thing to get a cancer diagnosis. The first thing you do is go from A to Z, which is I'm dying.
Yeah.
You don't even go through, oh, well, I think I'll make it. It's the process, you process so fast, it just leaves you totally off balance. And then you back into it. And then you start living, but you're still afraid to even live because you're not sure you're going to make it, even though they tell you you might.
Right.
You have to do the therapies.
Yeah.
Did you ever do any of the weird stuff, like herbal stuff or any of that stuff, or you just did the protocols?
No, I just hook me up.
Yeah, that's pretty much the same.
I bought a big fish tank, so when I was in bed, I could just look at the fish and zone out and watch TV or sleep or whatever I needed to do.
Yeah, you're awfully tired when you have cancer too.
Yeah,
it's exhausting.
It really is.
Because it's mentally and physically exhausting, but the physical, because you're going through all these changes, and then chemo. I mean, they bring you to the brink of dying with the drugs, all the drugs with chemo. And then if you don't die, well, you can come back again next week and we'll try it again to see if you're going to make it.
Yeah.
Scary stuff for Jake. I mean, how did Jake handle this?
Fine.
You did okay?
Yeah, he was good. It was really interesting. So his father had been estranged for all that time.
Right.
And infrequently talking to us. And then he died tragically right at the border of Tijuana and San Diego. And so that loss, so there was like this loss of hope there, and that's, I mean, when you're growing up, you have this hope we can figure this out. Right. And then 6 months later,
he's gone.
Well, 6 months later, I had cancer. So for him, it was, please don't die, just be there.
That's hard for a kid.
Yeah.
God.
But he was strong. He helped me.
Well, he's got you in him. He's a tough kid.
Yeah, he's an awesome, really awesome kid.
And now
I'm 4 years in.
You are. Now, do you have to get checked up and all that jazz?
Yeah, I do a PET scan I'll do a PET scan in March.
Okay.
So
that's probably when I'm going to get mine.
All right. Well, maybe I'll see you there.
Yeah. We could sit in the same room in the dark with this weird iodine or whatever it is going through. What is it? It's some kind of radioactive stuff.
Yeah, they said not to do too much.
You can't glow. You glow. You can't be near small.
You can't touch
children
people.
Or whatever. You can't touch people.
You're radioactive.
I'm walking out and I'm going, oh, I'm going to go over and see the great grandson tonight. I mentioned to the staff, and the staff's going, oh no, you're not. You can't get. And I go, really? I know nothing about that.
Right.
It's a different world.
It really is.
Unless you've been there, it's hard to relate to other people. And cancer survivors are people going through the stages of it. We can talk. But try explaining that to somebody that's never really had any life challenges, because those are life challenges. But I think it's actually worked for you because you're tough, you're smart, you're savvy.
Yeah.
And
Sort of.
and you fight back. You did. You're really.
It was
you're
just
really,
something I
really
had.
good at what you do.
We just had to get it done, right?
Well, you know, with what you do here, and I'm so glad you're still doing it. By the way, I mean, I think
Me too.
it's the reporter's taken on your personality. And I think that's a very good thing. I mean, that's one of my news sources that I use and cite. I get a lot of my good political gossip out of yours. I mean, there's always something to talk about in town here, and it covers a lot of issues. And it's not just a fluffy paper about somebody getting a key to the city or whatever it is. You guys really challenge people.
Well, that's the hope.
And you're not exactly fluffy, and I'm not looking for fluffy. I want real news stories, something I can relate to, something that entertains me, but something that also piques my interest enough to say, I don't necessarily agree with that.
Right. And that's important.
And that's very important.
And that's the whole thing about Paris.
That's exactly what it was. The freedom to
Challenge
speak.
me. I don't care how you bother me or how you insult me, but I want the challenge. And we should all look for that challenge about questioning ourselves and questioning everything else around us.
I think so too, in order to be a well-informed citizen of the world. I'm really proud you're my friend. I'm really glad you're in my life. I never
you're in my life.
say that to you very often because I don't see you that often.
Well, I know we're both.
We're
Anytime
busy
I
people.
contact you, it's
But every time
easy.
I interface with you, it's easy, it's fun, and I always learn something new. And maybe that's the strength of our relationship too.
Yeah.
And I love being around you anyway. You're fun.
Thanks.
Oh, we got to ask one last question before we go off, and we're just about done. How'd you get the name Michael?
I knew that was coming.
Can you tell me that in 30 seconds?
I knew it was coming.
30 seconds?
If you look at one of the pictures I brought for
On
Beauty
the-
Material,
Okay.
Michael Leonard
The
was
actress.
It was, my mom was Mary Jane, her sister was Margaret Mary. There's all these Marys in her life. Michael Leonard was, it was just the fact that she was able to hold that name at the age my mom was, and she held it well. So that's how I became Michael.
Great story.
Thanks.
Great woman. Exemplifies. Well, we're done, and you know, we've got to get you back here. This is not. This is the first of many. You're going to be coming back because there's lots of more stories I want you to relate. So
right.
thanks for being here, honey.
Okay.
And thanks for joining us again. And we'll see you next week.